What's up, everybody, and welcome in to another edition of the Sit Down. As always, if you enjoy this special Saturday video, please make sure you hit that like button and let me know what you think of today's very interesting discussion in the comment section below. If you're new around here, you just haven't done it yet, or you're living under a rock and seeing this video for the first time, I don't know what you're waiting for. Hit that subscribe button below now so you never miss another sit down video. Welcome in, everybody, to another great sit down show. Let's get into another very interesting organized crime topic. And one of the biggest question marks over the years in the American Mafia is, how did Tommy DeSimone really die? Who did it? Questions have always been abound about the man who was immortalized by Joe Pesci in the infamous and very popular Goodfellas. Today, we're going to delve into several theories. Did John Gotti actually take out Tommy D himself? We're going to delve into it. The story next on the sit down. Now, I'm not going to go through the entire life of Tommy DeSimone. I did that in a video here. That said, I want to delve into all of the plausible theories as to who and what actually happened on or around January 14th, 1979. Now, what we know is Tommy DeSimone did go missing January 14th, 1979. Now, this is just weeks after the infamous Lufthansa heist, which would happen at the end of 1978. So again, that's important. And we'll go over the theory that involves Jimmy Burke, which is a very plausible possibility. Now, with Tommy DeSimone, he was last seen at a pizzeria owned by Lucchese crime family mobster Bruno Facciolo. Now, according to Little Al Diarco, who would ultimately flip as a high-ranking member and boss of the Lucchese crime family, he would claim that he last saw Tommy dressed very well with Bruno Facciolo and Peter Vario, the son of Paul Vario, and they were at the old Gefkin's Bar, which is now this building on Flatlands Avenue. Now, Diarco states that he saw DeSimone leave with Bruno and Peter Vario, and they were last seen at that pizzeria. Now, remember, DeSimone was then taken to a location that we don't know, and as far as we know, whacked. Now, let's remember, we all know, and this is immortalized in Goodfellas, we all know this stuff. I'm just getting through some of the background. We all know Tommy D was a revolutionary. He was a renegade. He was a very dangerous and depraved individual. He was in his late 20s. He was just a lunatic. We all know that. Now, why was DeSimone killed? One of the reasons is, as we know, he whacked William Billy Bats Benvena. Now, that happened in June of 1970. We don't need to go through who Billy Bats is. Now, there is no known photo of Billy Bats. Now, I have seen one surface over the last year or so, but we are going to say that we don't have a photo of him. Unless we can characterize that as a guarantee, I'm not going to put it up. But there is no known photo. There is also plausible facts that Billy Bats was not a made member of the Mafia. Okay, that has been very much documented. In fact, I know OC Shorts did a video kind of discussing that there is no known record that Benvena ever became made. Now, it is possible that he was made off the books. He paid to be made. We don't quite know. So the whole notion in Goodfellas that Tommy D whacked Billy Bats, because Billy Bats was a made guy, that isn't necessarily probable. Now, again, I don't know if Billy Bats is a made member. There are also possibilities that Benvena didn't even exist. That's possible too. I don't believe that. I believe Benvena existed. He went to prison. Do I believe he was a made guy? I don't know. I can't say. That said, we do know that he was very close with high-ranking people in the Gambino crime family. That said, one of the other things that Mr. DeSimone did do is he whacked out a person called Ronald Jerothe. Now, Ronald Jerothe was whacked in December of 1974. Now, initially, Jerothe and DeSimone were close. They did hijackings and robberies together, and the two knew each other. Eventually, though, Tommy D would begin dating Jerothe's sister. And it was said that throughout the neighborhood, it was common knowledge that Tommy D began abusing Jerothe's sister. Now, Jerothe got wind of this, as any brother would, and wanted to take out Mr. DeSimone, and their relationship completely soured. Now, this is, to me, one of the very important parts of Mr. DeSimone's behavior. Jerothe, if you know him, was born in 1947, 7 years after John Gotti was born. And it is also common knowledge that when John Gotti was coming up in Brooklyn, he looked at Mr. Jerothe as kind of a little brother, if you will. He ran around Jerothe with the Bergen crew. He knew Jeannie Gotti. He knew Angie Ruggiero. Jerothe was very well liked, from what I understand, in and around Brooklyn and then into Queens. When they began hanging out in Ozone Park, Jerothe was always a regular around the Bergen. He was an earner. Gotti loved him. The Bergen crew loved him. He was very well respected. Now, I want to get to the night that DeSimone takes out Jerothe. According to what we know, on December 18th, 1974, Tommy D would go to Jerothe's residence at 8240 123rd Avenue in Queens. And that can be seen here. From what we know, DeSimone got the drop on Jerothe before Jerothe could get the drop on him. He walked up Jerothe's door and shot him 3 times. So, again, what did I just say? Jerothe, very well liked, very well respected, very well connected. DeSimone, pretty much hated by everybody, and had only several people that actually put up or dealt with him because he was such a lunatic. So again, Jerothe taking him out was a bad idea. Now, we can completely understand why Jerothe would want to take out DeSimone. Anybody watching this, look, if your sister was assaulted by a male, you would want to do the same. You would want to make him feel pain, right? Now, I will say, if you're enjoying this video, please make sure you hit that like button. If you'd like to support our channel, give a thought to hit that super thanks icon underneath the video. Anyway, now I do want to talk about a claim made by this individual, one of the people that is perpetrating this John Gotti thing, right? We do know, beyond a shadow of a reasonable doubt, whether or not we agree with everything Sal Polisi says, there is a lot of proof and factual basis that he did obviously know John Gotti and he knew most of these people involved. Now, Polisi would claim that in 1975, while he was in prison, alongside Angelo Ruggiero, who was, again, as we know, boyhood friends with John Gotti, and they were very close. Polisi would claim that on the stand in testimony, he would say, quote, "I said to Ruggiero, I told him if I had a chance, I would kill Tommy," Polisi said. Ruggiero would respond, quote, "He said, you can't kill Tommy," meaning John. He said, "John and I would take care of Tommy," meaning John Gotti and Angie Ruggiero, when they got out, they would take care of DeSimone for taking out their boy, Jerothe. Now, again, I want to make this clear. The only people pushing that John Gotti was personally involved with taking out Tommy DeSimone was Sal Polisi and Henry Hill, who, again, Henry Hill is completely not believable. Okay. He has made up various rumors. Okay. We all know that. We know he had problems with alcohol. He made up a lot of things. That said, Jerothe, very close to Gotti, and we'll get into the night that what could have happened or what did happen happens and what happened. Now, it is entirely possible, too, as I said earlier, that just several weeks before Mr. DeSimone went missing, he participated in the Lufthansa heist at the Lufthansa terminal at Kennedy Airport alongside Jimmy the Gent Burke. Now, we do know that in Goodfellas, and this is also factual, that Jimmy Burke took out basically everyone involved with the robbery. One of the first videos I ever did, one of the podcasts, when I first started the show in April 2021, one of the first episodes I did was of Jimmy Burke. I have not talked about Jimmy Burke in a long time. But when we look back on particularly smart, cagey, and also violent lunatics, Jimmy Burke has to be mentioned. Understand that he took out like a dozen people associated with the robbery. So he didn't either have to pay them or he just wanted to cut them out so they didn't cooperate or do something crazy down the road. Jimmy Burke, insanely interesting guy. And I'm going to revisit him very soon. Now, a lot of people believe that it is very possible that the theory is Jimmy Burke just took out Tommy D, right? That's entirely possible. We know Vario was probably tired of him. We know Burke was probably tired of him. And the only people that really liked him at this point were people like Jimmy Burke and Paulie Vario. Now, the one theory that I find very interesting is the one presented by Joseph Joe Dogs Iannuzzi, seen here in a much later picture. Now, Joe Dogs was an associate with the Gambino family with Gambino lunatic and overall psycho Tommy Agro. Now, one theory that Mr. Iannuzzi places is that Gambino hitter Agro told him himself he directly took out Tommy D. And Agro also stated that he also was the person that took out Tommy D's brother, Anthony, who was a known informant. And Iannuzzi claims that Agro claimed, quote, I'll just take out the other brother and it's a trifecta. Now, if you know anything about Tommy Agro, he would be indicted alongside Robert DeSimone in the 80s. So he knew all the brothers. And it's possible that he took out Anthony D. We know that. He took out Tommy D. And he also had joked, why don't I just get rid of Robert too? And it's a trifecta. Ha, 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 ha. I want to talk a little bit about Tommy Agro because obviously if Tommy D takes out Bats, he takes out Ronald Jerothe, the Gambinos probably want the contract to take him out. And we remember going back to what Polizzi says, Gotti wanted to do it himself due to the Jerothe thing. But it is very surely that Paul Vario got connected to maybe Paul Castellano. We know Paul Vario knew John Gotti. And the Gambino said, we want to take out DeSimone. Agro, if you know anything about him, was made in April of 1977, and he was promoted to membership by guess who? Joe Piney. He was then placed in Joe Piney Armone's crew. It was also very well known that Tommy Agro was very close to Joe Gallo, who was the consigliere of the family at the time. He also was very close with Paul Castellano. And remember, in the late 70s into the early 80s, Tommy Agro was a very depraved character. It was said he may have mental illness. He was a very trusted hitter. He was a guy that was operating in Florida. It isn't crazy to think that they got wind of Tommy Agro and said, listen, we need to have you come up, take care of a piece of work for the family. We're going to bring this guy to a location. You just get rid of him. I think that's very plausible. Do I think John Gotti was there? Possibly. He would have reason to be. Do I think he personally did this, though? No, I don't. I think the two most plausible theories is that Tommy Agro, who took care of people before. We know that on tape, Tommy Agro was a complete lunatic. He would assault people. He would do things that are very depraved. That is absolutely true. And listen, let me just be honest. Out of Henry Hill, Salvatore Polizzi, and Joe Dogs Iannuzzi, I think it is very clear if you've ever read Joe Dogg's book. Joe Dogs always came off incredibly contrite to me. It didn't come across to me that he was lying. Now, in the terms of Henry Hill, I know beyond the shadow of a reasonable doubt he lied incessantly. And Salvatore Polizzi also not only lied, but made himself bigger than he was. I mean, remember, Henry Hill straight up made up Spider. Spider never existed. There is no known proof that he ever existed. There's no birth record of Spider. There's no death record of Spider. There's literally no record that he ever existed other than a woman who claimed to be his sister that called into the Howard Stern show when Henry Hill was on it. So we know Henry lied a lot. We know, though, that Joe Dogs was pretty contrite and throughout his life always maintained a certain level of belief in anything that he said. Now, there is one other theory, and this is obviously a little bit more boring, but I think if I had to put my money, I'm a gambler. If I had to put my money on what actually happened to Tommy DeSimone, it's probably the one that's most boring. And it's the one that we remember from Goodfellas. We obviously remember this scene, one of the most memorable mob movie scenes of all time. Notice the two people behind Mr. DeSimone, or as they call him in the movie, Tommy DeVito. We know that they take Tommy D to a home, they walk him up to a room, and these two behind him, the man in the glasses, to me, is the Bruno Facciolo real life character. And the other guy is in the film Tony Cicero, but he would be the Peter Vario character. And they just take Tommy D out. So the thought is that we know Tommy D was walked into a room and whacked. I believe that to be definitely true. The question is, was it these two, Bruno Facciola and Peter Vario, that did this work? Or did those guys bring him to a location? And at the location inside was Tommy Agro alone. Also could have been Tommy Agro and John Gotti. What do you think? Who actually took out Tommy D? Was it John Gotti? Was it John Gotti and Tommy Agro? Was it Peter Vario and Bruno Facciola? Was it Jimmy Burke? What do you think? Let me know in the comment section below. Before I end this video, I do want to make it clear. I know a lot of people have talked about this subject over the years, but I just wanted to insert some more information that I found interesting. And really, I just wanted to give my own opinion on this. Look, I get the Gotti name is very palpable in this genre. People want to talk about it, and people do want to sell books like Sal Polisi, so they include the Gotti name. But the one guy that I found really interesting in all these claims was Joe Dogs. As I said, always a pretty contrite individual. And we know Tommy Agro was a maniac. It's not that crazy to think that the Gambino family was given the thing with Tommy D due to all the connections, and that they just chose Tommy Agro because he was trusted by Joe Piney, Joanne, and Paul, and they were the kind of heads of the family at the time. Like I said, let me know what you think in the comments below. We'll see you next week here on The Sit Down.